Good morning. It's Friday. It's the 10th of July, the end for most of another work week, coming up onto another weekend. Boy, time is flying. Huh. Anyway, our passage is from Acts 11:9. The voice from heaven spoke a second time, never consider unclean what God has made pure. Now, for Peter, we can have a lot of sympathy for him. After all, he grew up under the law. You keep the ceremonial law because if you are committed to following God, that's what you do. And yet he had been freed from that because he was now saved. And so God let down this big picnic cover from heaven, and it include a Big Mac, which is beef and cheese, lobster thermidor. Oh, I love that. And all sorts of other, oh, and blackened catfish. Oh, and my favorite, Dungeness crab. Eh, All of these foods which were considered unclean. And Peter not only kept ceremonial law, but he looked at what was coming down. It probably made him nauseous. I can't eat that. I keep the law. And God said, hey, if I'm calling it clean, you can eat it, which sort of ended the kosher laws as laws. Now, maybe some of those foods you can skip today and you'll be healthier for it. You sure would probably be healthier skipping the Big Mac. But there are still people who are doing basically the same thing. They're living under the law and saying, if you're a Christian, you have to do this, i.e., I don't swear, I don't chew, I don't go with girls who do. Well, I'm married, so. But the fact is, that may be a good idea, but it's not the law. What is our law? Love God and love others. And doing all the stuff, King James only, I know I may have just offended a few people, and other things that go on in what we would call legalistic churches. Ladies, you should never wear makeup. I always liked what Dr. McGee said. Some of you would look better if you did. No offense, I'm not picking on anybody here. I'm just saying that there is no spiritual benefit to any of this. There may be health benefits. There may be, if you think something God's telling you not to do it, don't do it. That's true. But all of this legalism, this long list of things that Christians shouldn't do, none of which are talked about in the scripture or even where there's principles that would support it, that's a problem. And very often, what ends up happening is people feel prideful because I would never do that or I would never do this. And so, look what a good Christian I am. It doesn't work that way because I might not do that, but I'm going to do something else. And so we have a loving God. We have a spirit that gives us discernment as to what we should and shouldn't do. But we're not called to live by a set of rules. Israel was, and those rules were given to show that they were incapable of meeting God's standards. And yes, they were benefits to them, but they weren't even aware of those benefits. So that's why it would be considered ceremonial, because God gave it to them knowing the benefits, but it was to show that they were incapable of meeting God's standards, not to show that they could. So if there's any, take a look in your life, and if you were doing something simply because you're supposed to do that if you're a Christian, you need to talk it over with God and see if that's even an issue. And if it is, then don't do it. But not out of legalism, not because you go to a church that has a whole long list of things, but because you want to please God. And we aren't under the law. Christ fulfilled it and paid the payments, paid the penalty for it. I'll get it out eventually. And so that's why we are free. We live under liberty, not license, but liberty. And so as you go into the weekend, have a liberty-filled weekend, but not a licensed one. And I'll see you again tomorrow.